and welcome to the Gothic Unicorn. This week I'm going to be working on something that is a bit outside of the ordinary remit of what I do, in that it's not particularly spooky, but it is something that is sort of a prototype for an idea I want to utilise in my doll's house in the future. So let's get on with it. I'm starting this week with a piece of pre-made furniture. Now this is a wooden side table. It's meant for either a kitchen or a more countrified kind of a room. It has drawers at work and is finished in a nice pine finish. Is that relevant? No, not really. It is simply a good sized table. It is nice and sturdy. I could use one of the little side tables that come from the range in the UK, or you can pick up from the Dollar Tree in the States. But this just happens to be a piece that's in my stash. Now, what I want to do, and I'm going to use this as a prototype, is I want to come up with a way of doing interchangeable decor. And what I mean by that is whereby I have a nice little decorative setup, and I can change it according to the time of year, the season, my mood, whatever. I can change it. So it's spring, it's almost Easter. It's going to be even closer to Easter by the time you see this video. And so I'm going to do something that is sort of spring stroke Easter themed. And what I want to do is I want to make something that I can attach to the table, but can take away and change for something else, so that if this was to indeed be in my doll's house, I could enjoy it for a few weeks, and then I could take it out and replace it with something that was different, whatever took my fancy. So this is my basic idea. Hopefully it's going to work. Now, if you saw last week's video in which I made a tiered tray, this is why I've made it, because I thought that a tiered tray, here it is again, is going to look great on the table. It's going to add height, and this is simple enough that I could make a new one for every tabletop that I do. I can make it in different colours, and I was toying when I made it with the idea of making the contents removable. So putting the contents onto, say, a piece of clear plastic and just taking them out. But it's so simple, so easy. I can make as many of these as I want. I can stick it in place, stick the decor on it in place, and go from there. So that bit I've already got. But that doesn't help, because obviously I don't want to stick that straight to my tabletop. I don't even want to temporarily adhere it to my tabletop. I need something to give me a base for the little scene. Decor scene, yeah, a little decor scene I'm going to make. So I've been looking around and I found, and I put it just out of reach, I thought I could get it. I found this ribbon in my stash. Let me move the table out of the way. And this is some Easter ribbon that I bought either last year or maybe a couple of years ago. And it's that nice sort of burlap effect, but it's coloured. And I did consider using this, and I would have had to have trimmed it down because it's wider than my table. But while I was out the other day, I found this ribbon, which is a lovely stripy Easter ribbon. It's got the sort of traditional Easter colours on it. And this, which is 3 metres, so 9 yards, maybe a bit closer to 10 yards, It cost me £1. I don't need all of this. I'm going to use a small amount, so I'm going to have to find something else to do with it. But it's actually really good. It's a polyester ribbon, but you could almost make that into, I don't know, a mini beach bag of some description. Certainly if you worked in a slightly larger scale than I do, if you worked in play scale, in 1/6 scale, that could be used to make a really nice little shopping bag. 2 pieces of that stitched together, make some handles, even make some handles with some more of this. Brilliant. So this is going to be my base layer, but obviously ribbon is not stiff enough. And again, I don't want to stick the ribbon straight to the table, because anything I put through that is going to, if I put glue onto that, it's going to soak through. So I turn to cereal box, and it's bubbled up a little bit with the glue, but you won't notice. It's a piece of cereal box, and I've stuck that piece of ribbon on the inside, and I reckon that I can actually tacky wax that into place. It's a little bit smaller on the edges, but that's all right. You could do it so that it hung down, but obviously if you do it so it hangs down, you've got to take into account, you've got to try and store all that and make sure it isn't hard on the side bits. So, and then I can put my tiered tray on the top, and I can put some more decor. So one thing that I did think I would include is a miniature doily. Sort of fits with the kind of over the top sort of look that I'm going for. This is made with a die, and again I put it within reach and then I've hidden it. It's just a little paper cutting die that I happen to own. You can buy real doilies that are quite small. The problem is the centre tends to be solid, so this is just a good way, but you can get some of these little ones that are designed for crafting that might just work. Now that is going to be the base for the first thing that I'm going to make today. And the first thing I'm going to make today is an Easter tree. So I'm going to clear this off and we'll have a look at that. I could have made an Easter tree by going and finding a suitable twig. Now I'm not going to lie, this might have been an easier option. I could have got a twig, painted it, spray paint would have been great, spray painted it white, and attached some eggs to it. Now my current garden is sadly lacking in plants, and I didn't feel like venturing further afield to try and find something. So I'm going to do another version that I've seen that I think I can replicate using some wire. This is a fairly heavy gauge craft wire. It's just sold as craft wire. It's not sold as being a particular gauge, but it's still fairly workable. It's not overly thick. And I've made some little eggs. Now I've made these out of my favourite silk clay. I bought some more, I couldn't live without it. And I've made them vaguely egg shaped, sort of make a circle and then sort of elongate it to a point at one end. And I've put a little hole into each one. This is just because it's easier to do this before it dries, and then I'll glue them on. And the final piece I'm going to use is a big wooden bead. Again, I've chosen it in a colour which sort of goes within the colour scheme set down by my ribbon. That's sort of very much given me my Easter colourway. As I say, it's not spooky. I will be making spooky versions of this kind of little scene for various places in my doll's house, but I'm doing this one as a separate one, just so that I can see if the concept works. Now, I need to cut, I've got 12 flowers, 12 eggs even. So I'm going to need 12 pieces of wire, and I don't know how long I'm going to need them, but I'm going to cut myself a series of pieces of wire, and I'm going to do this off camera in a minute, but if I just show you, you can get the kind of idea of what I'm going for. But I'm going to twist these pieces of wire together. So I'm going to cut my pieces and I'm going to have a go at twisting them, which I'll probably do off camera because it's not going to be very necessarily camera friendly activity. And then we will come back and we will look at putting a tree together. So I have put together my tree. I couldn't twist the wire quite the way I wanted because of wanting to use the bead as a pot. I could twist it together, but it wouldn't fit inside. So I twisted them in pairs, and then I've used a little bit of hot glue to hold them in place. And it sort of works. It's not quite as nice as I would have liked. I would have liked it either more twisty or more curvy, but I'm going to try, once the glue has completely set, to get a bit more curve in some of these pieces. Now I'm starting to stick the eggs on, and all I'm using is a little bit of my usual glue, and I'm popping onto the end of the wires, and then I'm popping the whole the egg onto the wire. Now the wire will actually go in a little bit further because the silk clay is still quite soft, and it's just a case of going round. Now I did a dozen eggs, that's great. You could do more, you could do less. It all depends on how you want it to look. Obviously you need a wire for each egg. Now I have seen pictures of trees that are like this, where the eggs are sort of stuck on the end of the branches, not hanging off it. You could make a tree and hang little clay eggs off the ends. It all depends on what you want, but I think that is going to work if I give it a little bit of zhuzhing and rearranging once things have set a bit, and then I can stick it into place on my base. Now I've stuck the little doily in place, and I will put that into the centre of the doily and probably do a bit more zhuzhing because I can get that on. And I've got a Happy Easter sign, which I want to try and get between the two, which means I've got to move the wires, otherwise it won't work. Now this was actually made from a wooden cutout wooden piece that you can buy for painting, which I did, but I didn't actually paint it because these were all cut out like this, got patterns on them. So what I did is I stuck it onto some cereal box. Stuck both sides onto cereal box, and then I've painted it. And I've painted it this nice bright daffodil yellow. That is actually what the colour is called. It is daffodil yellow. And then I have stuck on several layers of scatter confetti in this nice bright purple colour, which contrasts really well with the yellow. And I think that's going to work nicely on my little table once I get the tree positioned properly. So I'm going to go and fiddle with that off camera, and then we'll come back and we will have a look at filling the tiered tray. Just before I get onto the tiered tray, I've actually stuck these bits down. I've got my little Easter tree. I've got my Happy Easter sign. and then that will go on the end there. Now, these are glued onto the base, obviously, and the base has been stuck on with a little bit of tacky wax. Literally 4 little pieces in the corners just to hold it down, and it will come off. It'll come off this quite easily because it's a nice finished surface. So, onto the tiered tray. Now, I have been making bits in preparation for this, and I've used some more of the silk clay, and I made some more eggs. They're out of shot just on the side. I'll move the tiered tray back into sight because that's what we're going to be working on. And I've made some other bits which I will reveal in a moment. Now, the first thing I want to show you is a birdhouse. Now, this is really, really simple. It is just made out of cardstock, and I made, and I've got over there, what they call a net. It's what you make for making a box, and that is made on, I made it on squared paper. Really simple. 2 sides, a front and a back. Nothing too complicated. And then the base and the roof, which you can see there, have just been made a little bit bigger, so I've got overhangs. It's not overly fancy, and then you just fold it, score it and fold it. Well, you draw around it onto some plain cardstock. I literally just used the 220 GSM cardstock that I normally use for putting through my printer. I just used a scrap off something that I'd printed, and I then coloured it green. I coloured it with an alcohol marker, and I stuck on a little tiny punched hole that I punched out of some black cardstock, and a little tiny bit of a toothpick to make a little perch. And then that will go on the middle shelf of my tiered tray. So that piece is ready to go on. Now, as I say, I was using a lot of silk clay bits, and I tried to make some chocolate bunnies, but I haven't got any brown silk clay, and the clay that I did make came out a sort of browny colour, but not very good. So I wrapped them just in a little bit of ordinary kitchen foil, and I'm going to try and fit those on somewhere. It is just a single piece of foil. If you've got some coloured foil, even better. I probably have somewhere. Maybe I should keep some off an Easter egg this year. But I got some silver, and I thought I could put an int of a chocolate bunny on there. So I'm going to move these out of the way and pull some of the other stuff in so we can actually start attaching stuff. I have started adding the decorations to the tiered tray. I stuck the little birdhouse that I showed you onto the tray, and then I have added some of the leftover eggs. I put some moss in the top and added some eggs at the top, and then I've put a couple down by the birdhouse. And then behind the birdhouse, I filled in with some little printable Easter cards in suitable colours. There's actually 3 of them on there, although from the front you only really see the 2 on either side. It just sort of fills things out. Now I've got another space there, and I think I'm going to fill that with some of my little carrots later. But obviously the main event here is going to be the largest tray at the bottom. Now the big thing I've got to go on there, obviously I've got my little chocolate bunnies. I've got some flowers. Now I have made these as a sort of faux daffodil, and I've used another little wooden bead as a pot, little vase, and it's very slippy because it's a shiny wooden bead. And I made these little daffodil by punching out some little flowers and then making a little trumpet for the middle. And I've just done them in a pale yellow because it goes with the scheme that I've got. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a good amount of glue to the bottom of my bead, and I'm going to pop this into place on the tray. Now I want this to be fairly forward, and then yeah, that's going to work. Now I can't tip it over to show you because I want the glue to take. Now obviously it's Easter, there's bunnies, we need carrots. Now I think I showed you these before, that I made some little carrots out of the silk clay. They're not supposed to be real carrots, they're supposed to look like those artificial carrots that you get this time of year as decor pieces. And that's fine because this is what it is a decor piece. And obviously being orange against the other colours I've used, they stand out quite vividly, and that's great because you do need occasionally to put in a splash of something else. So I've got those, and I've got a little bunny plaque sign. It isn't, it is a puffy sticker. It's a puffy sticker that I've stuck onto some white cardstock and roughly cut around. Now I'm going to stick that on the back of my tray. Now I could, if I wanted to, stick a bit of something onto the back of that so it would actually stand up of its own accord, and I may do that yet because I don't think that this is going to glue because the edge is quite thin, so I will probably stick something so I can put that on the back of my tray. And I think the final thing I'm going to use on the tray, I think this is going to be the final thing. I'm not sure. I may have a little bit of a gap yet. I've made a little bowl. Now this little bowl, this little squared off dish, is made from a bit of air dry clay. And I wanted something to display some chocolate truffles. Now the chocolate truffles are just the bit of clay I had left after making my chocolate bunnies, and with my chocolate bunnies not looking very bunny-like, I think it's not so bad having a bowl of chocolates on there, and that's going to go onto the front of the tray as well. Now where I've seen tiered trays done as a decorative piece, they do tend to be overloaded and people put bunting and all sorts of stuff on it. You can do that if you want. I've got so many ideas and I'm really running out of time with this. So I've had to sort of limit myself. If I'd run with all my ideas, I probably would have had enough to cover 2 tiered trays rather than just one. But that's what it's like, isn't it? You either have no ideas or absolutely droves of them. So I'm going to go and stick these bits down because I don't think I'm going to be able to do it on camera without getting my fingers in the way, and then we can come back and we can actually look at the piece and then we can put it into place on the table. I have stuck all the pieces in place on the bottom of my tiered tray and I'm liking how it looks. It's a bit conventional for my tastes, but it is definitely looking very Easterish, which is what I want this time. Now I will say tweezers are your friends when working on something this small. These little pieces are a bit fiddly, especially when you're trying to get them into a specific space. So tweezers are a great thing. These are my favourites. These are, I think they're called something like reverse action, or sometimes they're referred to as forceps tweezers, but basically you have to squeeze them to open them, which means that once you get hold of something, you don't drop it easily, which is always a good thing. So yeah, we've got chocolate bunnies, truffles, my little bunny, which reminds me of an illustration from a children's book, which I think is kind of cool. And then that is now ready to go onto the table. Now I'll just pop this aside and I'll bring forward the table. Now I've actually added a few more bits to the table. I've added another couple of the little cards, and I've added some bunny garland. Now I really felt like I needed some kind of garland on the table, and I thought, I don't know what to go with. I've made bunting before, I've made garlands before, I've made paper chains before, and this one I've just made with some more of the scatter confetti, because I thought if I was going to do this, I needed to bring that purple in again, because the Happy Easter is the only place that the purple appears, and it did need to be brought elsewhere into the piece. Now, obviously it doesn't hang very well when I'm holding it like this, so you can see it, but it will look a lot better in the thumbnail picture, which you will hopefully have noticed before watching this video. What I've done with this is I've attached the little bunnies back to back, glued them back to back onto a piece of nylon thread, like fishing line kind of thread, but this is very fine, and then that is glued to the underneath of the tablecloth with a little bit of paper over the top, just to help keep it in place. Now the scatter I've used is this pot. I haven't used any of the eggs, and it's rather an unusual colourway because they're quite bright, and I haven't used the green or the blue, but there's time yet. And it was, I think it was £1, so I've got lots of material there, and I've got lots of little dots as well in the bottom, which I assume have come out of the eyes of the bunnies, because they're what's it out. So the next thing to do is going to be to stick the tiered tray in place, and then I can come back and show you the finished product. And here we have it, my removable seasonal decorative piece. I mean, I don't know what I'd call it, a table topper maybe. It's going to be interchangeable. I could make another one tomorrow for a different time of year if I wanted. A lot of work, but yeah. And there's Easter in a nutshell. Lots of eggs, lots of bunnies. Obviously, if you are celebrating a particular religion at this time of year, you can integrate that. There could be crosses, whatever suited your scene. My scene is a bit more generic. It almost looks like something that you would find in a shop window, and that is actually what I was aiming at for this. I wasn't aiming at a piece that was truly Easter, but that sort of has got a lot of those sort of things that you see every year about this time. And obviously, if I had laid off on the eggs a bit and not added the Easter cards, it could have been a spring scene. You know, more flowers, less eggs, definitely springtime. Colours could definitely be springtime. Although I think if I was going to do spring, I'd use more greens. That's just me though. Maybe I will do a spring one, I don't know. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please like, comment and subscribe. Maybe even ring that notification bell so you can find out when I upload a new video, YouTube willing. I know some people have problems with the notifications, but you know, it's the best we've got. I try and upload a video every week. I aim for a Friday, but real life sometimes gets in the way, and real life might definitely get in the way next week. I'm not sure that there will be a proper video next week if you're watching this when it goes up, which is the first week of April, because it's school holidays here, and that means that the normal rules are definitely out of the window. But that said, until next time, bye.